What's going on, Soul Tribe? I salute the divinity in you, and welcome to my channel, Alchemist. Justin here, and are you ready to work with the energies this week? Because you know what, I really like how this week starts. We got a lot of nice stuff that's happening towards the beginning of the week. The Sun and Mercury are going to be forming a sextile with Big Papa, harmonious aspect. So who doesn't love that? And then we have Jupiter, and but then we have the Sun Mercury Cazimi that's going to be happening the following day. Mars and Venus are going to be forming a sextile with one another. So there's a lot of opportunities here, I think, for some goodness that's getting ready to happen here. But then as we get into towards the end of the week, then Saturn's going to want it. It wants to chime in and have an opinion, trying to bring a damper on things. So we'll be able to we're going to navigate through all those transits here in a moment. But if you're new here, again, my name is Justin, and one of the things that I do in this channel is talk about the Celestial News Weekly, the chit chat that goes on up in the with the classical planets there, and how to work most practically with those energies. And I'm going to be going over the week of September 11th through the 17th, 2025. And let's go ahead and get into this thing. Here's a little preview of how the planets are moving along there. But as we move into Friday, we're starting off in the green. Love that. The 12th of September, we have these two aspects that are going to be happening within about a little over 12 hours of each other. First, we start off with the Sun forming a sextile with Big Papa, and that's going to be happening at 19 degrees and 48 minutes. The Sun is in Virgo and Jupiter is in Cancer, and that's going to happen at about 12:30 a.m., and then that's going to be Pacific time. Now, when you think about the sextile energy just in general, if you're looking at the chart here, that's when the planets are 60 degrees apart from one another. Here's Jupiter in Cancer, and then here's the Sun and Mercury in Virgo. And there's, as you can see here, there's this, the sextiles create this sense of ease. They're like the trines, but a bit weaker. They require a bit more initiative, when we're talking about with those ones. But when I think about the combination of the Sun and Jupiter, just Jupiter, let's start there. Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, really been trying to bring some goodness since it's entered into Cancer. It's been challenged, it's definitely been, there've been some hindrances, with this energy, but Big Papa is still trying to bring this sense of abundance, this feeling of faith in that there is going to be something better, this sense of relief from bondage and from all bad things. But Jupiter brings great alliances and unions with people. There's this sense of, even, something I don't think is necessarily talked about a lot with Jupiter, but it brings this sense of like love and desire too. That's not just all Venus, and Jupiter wants to bring this love in things in the world as well. And what I think is really has happened here with this Sun one, this is an opportunity to go within, when we're thinking with that sunlight, to think about the areas maybe that you want to improve. How can you, with that sun, be more in alignment with that higher intelligence of yourself, that spirit, when we're talking about that true will, when we're thinking about the sun. And what are some things that you feel like you want to be, that you're wanting to improve? Maybe this is something in the home space that you're wanting to do, something in relationships, something in your job, something in your family, something with your whatever this thing with yourself, whatever that thing is. It's one, when we're with this first one, I feel like this is one to be able to take a time and just visualize, what is that higher, what does you in an improved condition look like? Let's shine some light there first. Really get a sense of where you want to go with your life. Is this, do you feel like the things that you've been doing, the people that you've been hanging around have been supporting that growth? And then when we get to the next aspect, that Mercury sextile in Jupiter, that's going to happen at 19 degrees and 53 minutes. So, Mercury in Virgo, Jupiter in Cancer, and that's going to happen at about 2:53 p.m. That's going to be taking what you receive, those kind of ideas, whatever inspiration. Really, again, tune in. These are receptive energies, that we're thinking about with Cancer and Virgo. take in all of that stuff that you're feeling. And then with Mercury and Virgo, because now we have both Mercury and Jupiter are exalted, and Mercury is not just exalted but at home too. So Mercury is able to make sense of these feelings that you've been feeling with Jupiter, that we've been feeling, that we're maybe wanting to tap into with the sun, and able to put that into practical application, be able to take the feelings and move things in the physical when we're talking with Earth energy. Virgo energy is powerful, especially with Mercury here. And so this would be a one where, and if this is something too with Jupiter, this is not a thing where you have to do this all by yourself. Like I said, Jupiter brings in alliances with great people. So ask for help. Sometimes that's all we have to do is ask. Because even if maybe they don't have the answer, then maybe they can get you to the answer that you need to get to. But it's about letting that be seen first. I think that that's something that's really kind of important with this energy here. But I really like how both of them are going to be forming this sextile with Jupiter, because then we get to the next day here on a Saturday, the 13th of September, and then we have the conjunction that's going to be happening with Mercury and the Sun, and that's going to happen at 20 degrees and 54 minutes of Virgo. And when I think about this, the Sun and Mercury coming together, those energies fusing together, this is being able to again take that higher, to be able to take that voice in your head that's rooting for you, that one that's trying to elevate you, that wants you to shine your brightest. This, I find the conjunction is a great time to be able to really receive those inspirations, those downloads, and to where they may not feel or it may not seem as abstract, because I find that, Mercury is really great with pattern recognition in Virgo. You need to be able to interpreting signals and symbols and things. So, this could be where this would be a great day, I think, for doing some sort of like meditation, doing some sort of prayer, doing some kind of, maybe even doing some kind of like maybe dream work or something like that. Something that gets you tapping into that kind of inner side of you, and figure out again with that Virgo energy, what to do with that. Not let it just be a feeling, but let it be something that you put outside of yourself, something that you start to move some pieces around there. With Mercury Virgo, we're playing chess. We're playing a game here. And we're trying to get stuff all together. Oh, and if I didn't mention, that conjunction is going to be happening at 3:51 a.m. and again, that's going to be Pacific time. So it's really nice. I think that this energy that we're going to be under here over these next couple of days, and it's not going to stop. It's not the planets the energies are given, because on Monday, the 15th of September, Venus is going to be forming a sextile with Mars, and this is going to be happening at 25 degrees and 51 minutes. Venus is in Leo and Mars is in Libra, which I want to start off mentioning is the sign that Venus is the ruler over. So Mars is receiving this kind of overcoming sextile by Venus. So Venus is really working the martial energies, trying to bring in this sense of, taking all that goodness that we've been trying to get into and put it into action, initiating things with that Mars and Libra. You had that idea, go for it. Let's not think about it. Let's do about it. And then Venus in Leo is taking that energy and sustaining that goodness, sustaining that fun, sustaining that harmony, that balance, that concord, keeping those unions, forming different alliances and things. This in general, though, is just like a nice, really just kind of lovely energy. There could be maybe some romance that might be in the mixer whenever Venus and Mars are meeting together in a conversation. Passions can fly there. But I think that that's not just in relationships, that's within ourselves as well, that kind of creative spark, that ability to want to, to do some creative thinking, to want to make something to come outside of ourselves here, to create this new sense of beauty, this new sense of harmony, to not feel bogged down by all of the things, So I really like this energy here. No, and something to keep in mind of, check your charts, as you're going through these, as I'm going kind of these degrees there, especially with that conjunction, for example. Let me go back a little bit. With that conjunction, checking to see if you have anything around 20 degrees of especially the mutable placements. That's going to be Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces, and Gemini. Those planets are going to be excuse me, these energies are going to be working more personally with you. Maybe so that's something to kind of tune into. But this again, this is a really nice little pocket of days, almost week that we're going to get of this thing. So it's like make the most of this, really kind of build this stuff up, starting though, starting that new routine, starting those new habits and things like that. Because when we get to the last day here on Wednesday, the 17th of September, here's Saturn. Saturn, wet blanket. just trying to put a damper on things. You got Mercury that's going to be forming an opposition with Saturn. And this is going to be happening at 28 degrees and 46 minutes. Mercury's still in Virgo, getting ready to transition out here soon. And Saturn is in Pisces, it's retrograde in Pisces. Now, when you're thinking about the opposition, this is when the planets are. Oh, and if I didn't, I'm all over the place. Let me go back a little bit with that sextile. By the way, let's go back to the green for a minute. I want to revel in that a little longer. That's going to be happening at about 8:03, coming to at its exact at 8:03 p.m. Pacific time. Now, the oppositions are when the planets are in opposing signs and houses from one another. And they can feel like this sense of, it's an opposition. There's this two conflicting things at odds here. We were just on this really lovely high, this beautiful energy that we built into. And now we come to a place where we're meeting with obstacles. We're met with hindrances with Saturn. Things that Saturn tends to bring anxieties, tends to bring in those doubts, things that make us feel downcast, get us into laziness and sluggishness and depression. Those are energies, this could show up in a number of ways when we're talking something that's trying to bring, just when life just happens to life. And now the challenge is how to keep that mental stamina, keep that will, keep that idea that we were just really feeling through. Because to keep in mind, it's like as we're feeling that stuff, that opposition is growing too. And it's inevitable that when we start to get some progress and start making some moves, we're going to come across some kind of hindrance, no matter whether it's big or small, meeting this sense of barriers. And this is not a means to give up, because I think that's what a Saturn opposition in Mercury can do. This could get it to where the challenge seems too much, it seems too overbearing, and then we tap out before we even give whatever this hope that we were trying to build up here a chance. And keep in mind, even though there's this opposition here, again, Mercury is really, really strong here, in Virgo. So there's still, I think Mercury's trying to give us this kind of fighting chance to take, let's say any of those doubts, for example, that may come up. And it's just like, okay, I acknowledge those doubts, but is this, not necessarily that, is it real? But, so how I would, so I have, just for an example, I have Saturn. I have a pretty loaded first house, and thankfully I have a day chart, but Saturn is opposing all of that stuff in Aquarius. And there are times where, I feel like I can, I'm starting up things, I got all these beginnings, but then there's always something else that I need, something, maybe it's someone I need help from, or, there's, or maybe someone that's not necessarily getting in my way, but it feels like they're maybe getting in my way, and I think that the purpose of this opposition is to remember that, let me go ahead and switch over here, that life is going to bring its challenges, that there are always going to be those responsibilities, those obligations, those things that are, the world is going to keep doing its thing while we're trying to do our kind of personal things. That's not, I'm just even talking just in a personal thing. That's not even factoring in the external that's going on here. So there's always going to be something that's going on, but it's like not letting this opposition sully what is overall a really nice week. You know what I mean? I think that it's not looking for, it's like, okay, how can I build up enough, how can I fortify enough of this kind of mental will, this stamina to weather the storms of Saturn? You know what I mean? What are something, is this working on a better inner dialogue, possibly? Is this learning how, maybe this is talking with someone, this could be whatever this thing is, maybe if you notice, let's say if you're working on like a workout routine, if you find it hard to maybe get to the gym, well, it's like, what, that seems to be an opposition there. Let me work with that and build it at home. Let me try to do something like that, trying to find some sort of compromise in the mix. But there's always going to feel like there's this teetering energy. And, I even can see this as this Mercury opposition as other people coming in, and not necessarily maliciously, but maybe you might be feeling this sense of goodness, but maybe other people aren't feeling that. Maybe they're feeling this sense of just like kind of feeling like an outcast, or not feeling like maybe that they're missing out on something and things like that. And so that could be even a way that maybe Saturn tries to bring things down as well. But I think our job is trying to, again, to be that opposing force, to be that balancing force in this, because it's just like how astrology, there's there's not like there's more malefics than benefics. We got two benefics and two benefics, and a bunch of neutral planets trying to feel our way through all of those things. So I really think that this can be a really positive week. And I think that, let the Saturn opposition just be, how do I keep this moving forward? How can I show myself some grace through this period of time as I'm getting the ball rolling? How can I keep the optimism, things like that? Because Saturn is going to, Saturn sometimes can come in real heavy. So I'd be mindful, especially if you're one that you notice that you're prone to maybe like depression, or maybe have some kind of mental things that you might be dealing with, making sure to take the proper precautions and things for that, taking the necessary steps to help support you through that kind of hump as we get through there. So that's basically the energies of the week, though. So yeah, we got a lot that we're feeling through, but again, I feel good about, again, if we starting that stuff off there, that can give us enough cushion to kind of help weather those bumps sometimes that come through when we're working with especially hard aspects with the malefic. So. But that's all I got for you there. And if this is something where you want to see how these transits are working more personally in your chart, whether it be kind of going over just your natal chart in general, looking at the transits that are affecting you, or if that's something where you want to do any sort of like elections, for whether that be for electing for a vacation, for a wedding, signing a contract, building starting a business, things like that. Down in the description box is a link to book a consultation with me. And if you have any questions as far as like the services that I provide, my email's down there, so definitely feel free to reach out to me. There's going to be a link for the lunar shenanigans, which goes over the moon, or the astrology of the moon, and it talks about what sign it's in, what phase it's in, when it happens to go void of course, and just to get a feel of the week as the moon distributes the energies to us as as it talks with the different celestial bodies. And then I also have this series of videos that I'm doing where I talk about different celestial bodies in different zodiac signs in different houses, and my thoughts about them, and how to go about approaching some things to think about when you're looking at your chart and trying to navigate those placements there. So that's available for you in playlist as well. But that's all I got for you. So until next time, stay mindful out there. Keep raising that vibration through the roof. And I will catch you on the next one. Tuesday or Wednesday. Whenever.